I'm going to say a highlight of this past year was getting to work with the Collin Street Bakery team, getting to see how that family, I think it's 150 years they've been making fruitcakes,
Wow.
and they send them, all over the country for sure.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, to get in there and watch the production of the how they place the pecans,
yeah.
and we worked with Thomas McNutt, who's the vice president there, and he asked us to
Yep. He's a
look
good
at
guy.
their cake process of how they place those pecans on there. And what we figured out, we worked with their team, is we realized that they were spending a lot of time taking the cakes on and off this conveyor line, kind of like
Yep.
the I Love Lucy thing. They were doing that,
Yeah.
and each person was decorating their own cake and then putting it on the line. We're like, hey, what if everybody just puts two pecans on there, or and the rest of the fruits, and we just let the cake stay on the conveyor line? And we tried it one time, and it's like, wow, did that just happen? And they're like, that's way better. And then as we did that efficiency, what we saw was, hey, we're getting 30% more cakes down the line than we did before.
Hmm.
Then we started asking questions about that, about their next process, which is their bake oven and then their freezer.
Yeah.
And then that's what, when I called you to go down there and you looked
Yeah.
at that for us.
That was wild. That freezer was humongous. I don't know if I've ever walked into a freezer like that before. That humongous spiral conveyor and the big cooling fans on it. That was an interesting one. It had a bunch of different types of sensors, right? Usually we're looking at, I don't know, maybe sense temperature or pressure, maybe power. But on this one, what was it? We had that laser sensor on the front end. So we were detecting that the fruitcakes were coming into the station or into the freezer, and then we had a thermocouple inside the freezer, so we knew the temperature, and then we had that power monitor on the cooling system, so we could tell if the cooling system was on. It was nice to have all three of those components, right?
Really, it's kind of hard to see a refrigerator when the doors are shut and you can't look into it from the outside. No one really knows what's going on inside, but when you have that sensor in
Yep.
there gathering that data and can show that data to
Yep.
the management team, it's like there's no question about it. The data is like there. You can't question it. It's real time. It's been
Yep.
collected for months, right?
Yeah.
So it's exciting to see what we're doing with sensor technology.
And on that
Right.
one, I remember the big takeaway was we could report utilization basically of the freezer system. If you know you're at the right temperature and you know that the system is on, right, because cakes are either coming into it or not, then you can start to draw out that information on utilization, which for that size of freezer is a really big deal.
I think that we realized that there were during the day there were gaps where, let's say
Yep.
the line was running and there'd be a half an hour where it's not, and then another production run, and then another half hour where those freezer, it was just on full-time blast, right? It was
Yep.
just going all day long.
Yep.
And now with like some new controls, they can automatic, right? It can automatically just turn on and off as needed, right?
Yeah, if they put in the new controls, but even then, not changing their existing hardware, I think what they learned with your training is that they can change their process on the front end so that they get more of this, one piece flow and get more utilization out of the system. And then they can just have the freezer either on or not on, to adapt to that needed flow.
Right. They reported back that the opportunity to reduce the energy for that freezer
Mhm.
was like a quarter a million kilowatts
Wow.
annually, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then they all, once they got this idea of looking for waste throughout the whole flow, their team had identified they had a liner, like a little foil liner that they were using in their pans,
Yep.
and they realized if we had some pans that were a little different, we could eliminate that foil liner. So they did that. They changed their panning process. So I think they said that last year they had eliminated almost 1.7 million foil paper liners from the cake. So now when you buy a cake, it doesn't have that liner on it that even the consumer would have to throw away at their house.
Yep.
You just get the cake and you can cut it and then you can eat it. So
Yeah, I remember
I
on those cakes, I remember setting up the that laser sensor just the right elevation so that we could see, we were tracking the right pans that were coming by. And that was one of the cool things about the system that we stood up. It doesn't, the way it's architected, it doesn't interfere with the clients, in this case, Collin Street's operations. It's a totally ancillary system, right? So it doesn't affect their production, which from my seat on the technology side is a big deal. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to say Collin Street Bakery and their team. What's fun is when you work with a family-owned business that still has the culture where all of the employees there really care about doing a great job. So that it was fun to have people. I know that when you worked with your facility guy, he was on board with anything we could do to help them out. And that was true of their production people. They were super excited to look for new opportunities moving into the future. And it's going to be interesting to see how Collin Street continues to grow their business as they become not just in Corsicana, but a name that's going to be across the country where more people are buying their fruitcakes.
Yep. Yeah, they're a good crew of people. I'll definitely be buying a couple of those deluxe fruitcakes this year.
Hey, the only problem about a fruitcake is you can only have a small amount because it's so rich. If you eat more than like 2 inches of it, it's like it's intense. All the nuts and the fruits and
there is a self-control issue, but hey, it's worth it. If I have to go run around a little bit more to burn it off, I think that's a fair trade.